uh, to join a membership action plan, a NATO action plan. Then through Germany and France, we heard we will not admit you to the program today. 3 months later, we saw the war in Georgia and Putin invaded Georgia. 5 years later, Putin invaded Ukraine. So, of course, this is a rhetorical question, but how did it happen that a country that made the greatest contribution to the end of Cold War, and I mean Ukraine, and yet it did not receive the security support it was due? And what is happening in Ukraine now, I refer to the Russian aggression. It's a challenge not just for Ukraine, it's a challenge for the world. In 30 years, a country appeared in Europe that is professing fascism, neo-Nazism, that is moving borders in Europe. I don't think we need to ask who the bell is tolling for. It's tolling for all of us. And when we talk about a settlement to this Moscow war, we obviously will demand a return of all our sovereign lands, a full political sovereignty over these lands. We will demand a security model that would not risk the loss of land and political sovereignty.
Viktor Yushchenko, you know Putin well because he did not support you when you were running for president of Ukraine. He supported your opponent. He came to Kyiv several times to campaign for your opponent. Did you ever expect him to go this far? You know, he did not like the Orange Revolution. He did not like the results which brought you to power. Did you ever expect him to go this far?
Ви знаєте, що в 2005 році...
You know, in 2005, Putin was not on the list of my friends. But I understand that Ukraine's geographical interest was in the West, and that was our strategy. Of course, some of it is in the East, some of it is in the North, and some of it is in the South. So Ukraine's interest demanded that I maintain some contact with the Russian president. I organized it, and I would say that the President Putin I used to know, he's not there anymore. He's gone. And when I look at this man in Russia, who's the Führer in the Russian Reich, who is occupying and is waging war number 7 in Eastern Europe, starting with Karabakh, South Ossetia, Abkhazia, Crimea, Transnistria, Donbass. That all of that, Russia was all behind all of that. All the wars in Eastern Europe in the last 30 years were organized by Putin. That is the world's problem. So this image of evil, that's not just something Ukraine invented.
That is a very strong memory and it's a very strong perspective. And obviously you suffered yourself. You were poisoned back around 2004, 2005. I talked to you about it at the time. And it really affected your health and your face. Do you now believe that that was orchestrated by Russia, even by Putin?
What you've just said, you are absolutely right. And this is understood by anyone who is close to this issue. At the same time, it is a complex criminal case because everyone involved in it is currently in Russia. And obviously it is very difficult to pursue an investigation when most of the persons of interest cannot be questioned or summoned, and their witness statements cannot be appended to the case. So we have to wait until Russia becomes democratic and only then we can put a full stop in this case.
How do you envision Russia becoming democratic?
Складне питання.
That's a difficult question to answer. I am one of those politicians who are aware that Putin is a big problem for Russia. It is a fatal problem for Russia. This president must be part of Russia's past. He must become Russia's past, and we must return to a Russia that we are more used to. And I'm fully confident that this will happen. But an even bigger problem is how Russia is thinking and feeling, and the illness that Russia has. And this is the same illness that Putin has. That 140 million people in Russia have this illness. There are far too few Nemtsovs in Russia, far too few Leah Akhajakovas, Oleg Basilashvili, or Andrei Sakharovs. I know they exist, they're there, and I'm always remember them with pleasure. But it is a big problem in Russia in terms of democratic development.
And finally, you were the one who started for Ukraine the sort of process to join NATO. Do you regret that?
Я жалкую тільки
I regret that in the spring of 2008, we lost the Bucharest summit. When I saw that Chancellor Merkel refused, when I saw the refusal of Nicolas Sarkozy, I had the impression that the decisions on the Ukrainian issue were not made at the summit. They were made somewhere in Moscow. Maybe this isn't a very appropriate note to end on, but I thought that the world of NATO can be weak. It lacks unity. That reason takes a step back, and the political corruption that Putin spread all over Europe, I think we can see it still to this day. So whether to be or not to be, if you allow me, I will make a semi-joke on joining NATO. So this joke says, a country politically divided into the East and the West, is it worthy of NATO membership? A country with a weak democracy, is it worthy of NATO membership? A country where the justice system is not fully effective yet, does it deserve to be a member of NATO? Or a country where denazification has to be completed, is it worthy of NATO membership? Well, do you think we're talking about Ukraine? We're talking about Germany of 1955 in October, when the question of its NATO membership was discussed. So I'm always surprised at the Security Summit of 2008 that Ukraine lost. I think that was the best time to protect Georgia and to protect Ukraine from an actual war, a hot war as we call it, because Putin had not waged a real war before that. And the best way to avoid it at the time was a united position from NATO.
Vicky Yushchenko, thanks so much